We're looking at the biggest release of financial secrets in human history for the most part, dwarfing even the Panama Papers from about a decade ago. Roughly 3 terabytes of financial secrets showing off how the rich and powerful have hidden their assets and have gotten away with effectively laundering money in many cases and just other acts of corruption. We've seen in these papers how money was hidden in the form of hard assets like yachts parked in international waters, how money was funneled through shell corporations, in some cases to pay bribes for diamond magnates in other countries, and was in many cases just stored in offshore accounts in companies under relatives' names and other ways around the taxation and regulation laws around the world. And roughly 330 politicians alone were named, and world leaders were named in these papers, and thousands more if we're looking at business leaders as well as the rich and powerful, including something in the vicinity of 600 Israeli nationals, probably most prominent among them being near BARKAT, who you mentioned, the big one there being whether or not he properly held his own holdings in a blind trust from 2012 to 2018, then following that in 2019 when he was elected as a member of parliament here. Remember that a blind trust is supposed to put a layer of distance between a politician and their financial assets. When you have that layer of distance between them, there's supposed to be an elimination of financial and profit motive in their legislating. If they're legislating with financial motive, you can't trust that the motive is for the good of the country versus the good of themselves. But in the case of BARKAT, we're finding that the money was held in his own name in the Virgin Islands, and then in 2019 transferred to his brother, despite what he told financial regulators in Israel. While he's dismissed it, is leading to a lot of questions in Israel and around the world. How do you regulate the people that are making the laws and decisions?
And now you mentioned BARKAT, clearly in Israel, he may be the most noteworthy on the list. Who else really stood out so far from this expose?
So we have a few of them, including a former Labor Party judge who is mentioned in the Pandora Papers, I should say, for holding money in offshore accounts. We have an Israeli diamond magnate who was noted for using shell corporations to bribe regulators and governments for better legislation. And probably another big one that you mentioned yourself was King Abdullah of Jordan, with the use of shell companies to hold $106 million worth of luxury real estate across the United States. And it's very unclear about whether or not this is public money that went into it. Obviously, Jordan said that they cannot give any of the paperwork to the public, claiming that this is security and financial secrets of the state. And in many cases, it just really underscores the lack of transparency in dealing with these issues. And if you're looking at this from the perspective of politicians and national level leaders, one has to ask the questions. If you're looking at the working in the middle class of these countries, they bear the majority of the tax burden in these countries that keep these societies functioning. If that's the case, why are the people with the most resources not paying into those same societies?